But what he was saying was like, you young kids don't understand the horrors of war, and if you're this ignorant about war, you're going to repeat it. So you guys need to actively protect peace. Peace is not something that just automatically happens. If you have to protect it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Small Talk Japan. On this show, we talk about all things Japan in English. My name is Michi, and this is my co-host,
Natsuki.
And if you'll notice, there's just two of us today, and that's actually on purpose. Today, we're going to talk about something very, very serious. We're going to actually talk about what is known as the end of the war day in Japanese. What is it in Japanese?
終戦記念日.
And in English, it's called Victory over Japan Day, but it's the end of the official end of World War II, which is August 15th. It was 1947?
45.
1945. And the reason why we're talking about this for a few reasons. One, because, we are actually trying to do a little bit more serious shows every now and then, right? We can always talk about anime and stuff like that. But also because this particular day affected me in a weird way. A few years ago, my television station, because I was a reporter for TV and everything, they decided to send me out to a museum that's here in Kagoshima. It's in Chiran, the town of Chiran, and it's in English we call it the Peace Museum, but what's it called in Japanese?
平和記念館.
So the Peace Memorial Museum, right? So it's basically a museum that kind of teaches children about the kind of the horrors of war. And it's a really powerful place to go to. You see like what happens when especially to the people at the, we always talk about when you talk about war, it's like the people on the top make the decision, but it's always the people on the bottom that pay the price for it. And so in this particular case, like you see the young boys who were sent on kamikaze missions to kamikaze musicians, sorry, to fight in the war. What do they call in Japanese? They're called they're not
特攻隊?
Tokotai, which means special forces.
特攻隊. Yeah, 特別攻隊. Yeah, special forces.
So tokodai.
特攻隊.
Tokodai. So they're not called kamikaze in Japanese. I don't know, why do we call it that? That's weird. Because, Divine wind is what it means, right? But you guys don't call it that, right?
No, it's an English word.
Yeah, it's like a Japanese English word. Also, I mean, like there's another one that we call it harikiri, which is harikiri. But in Japanese, it's seppuku.
Harakiri to seppuku.
Sorry, harakiri, sorry. Yeah, so it's seppuku. And so I don't know why we took that word that way. It's weird. But anyway. But yeah, so and that museum is dedicated to, mostly it has a lot of stuff in it. But one of the main exhibits they have are the letters that were written by these young boys to their families. And because, I mean, they're obviously written in Japanese, and they're the actual letters that are in these glass cases. And there's English translations of them. And for whatever reason, my television station decided to send me to that place that year. And their logic was, every year, this day comes and we talk about it and we send a Japanese reporter to the museum and they go, oh, it's so sad. And then it's done. And then nobody really thinks deeply about it, is what my television station told me. And I kind of agreed with that. I was like, okay, that makes sense. So they wanted to send me because I'm mixed. I'm mixed race, right? I'm my Japanese mother and Japanese grandmother. And so, and an American father. And so I'm mixed race. And so they wanted to send me to that place to see like the difference in reaction, I guess, and really to get the audience to think deeply about the what that day means to this country. And I gotta tell you, it was fucking traumatic. Like I never went there before on purpose because I don't like places like that. I'm very anti-war. And especially when it deals with children, because these pilots were like high school kids, right?
Yeah, 17, 16 maybe.
Right.
20s.
They started off with, the university student age, and then they got younger and younger as the war went on. But it was just like, I never wanted to see that place, but my TV station convinced me to go. And so today we're going to watch some clips of that a little bit, and we're going to talk about it. And so that's the reason why it's just me and Natsuki today, is because this is kind of a controversial subject, and I wanted both people that are, talking about it today on the show to be of Japanese descent. And since I'm mixed and Natsuki's obviously Japanese, I think it would be more appropriate for us to have this conversation, just the two of us. So, Josh, if you could actually play that video a little bit, we'll clip this into the YouTube version of the podcast. So, Natsuki, when you heard that I was going to this place and doing this report, what did you think?
Are you okay? I seriously thought you're okay.
Yeah, so they asked me about this first, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, no.
Yeah.
my initial reaction was no, hell no, I'm not doing that. But the director of this video was very serious, and when I listened to her explanation of why they wanted to send me, it kind of made sense.
What did she say?
She said she wanted the children, this generation, to understand, and that it wasn't going to mean anything if they just sent another Japanese reporter there. There would be no impact, and the kids wouldn't learn any lessons. And so she said the reason why we want you to go there is because we want you to see, because you have that mixed background. They want to see that different kind of perspective. So you can see right now in the car, I'm not into it. I'm not into it. I'm in the car. They turned around, they put the camera on me, and they're like, can you talk about this? And so the very first thing I was talking about how I'm mixed race, and I'm already tearing up because I don't do well with stuff like this.
Did you know that there was a big base in Chiran? That's why they had a museum there.
So I didn't know anything about that place.
Oh, okay.
I specifically avoided that place. I never wanted to. You can see I'm already tearing up, and because I hate war, I hate violence, I hate all kinds of that stuff. And I'm talking about in this scene, how I teach. At the time I was teaching hundreds of kids, and I look at these kids, especially when they're young. They don't have any hatred, no bias, nothing. They're just cute little kids, no matter where you are in the world. And so I didn't want to see those kids in any other different light, especially when you go to this museum and you see the pictures of those pilots and everything. I didn't want to see that. And you can see I'm tearing up. This is traumatic for me. It was really hard for me. And so I didn't want to go.
You explained the feeling.
Yeah. And so they didn't tell me that they were going to do this. They just told me we'll start filming you once we get there. But immediately the director, because she knew what she was doing, right? She turned around, she has the camera guy on me, and she's like, "How do you feel?" I'm like, "I don't want to talk right now." I'm like, because I was nervous. And they make me go here, and I'm just not into it. I'm not into it. I'm usually on TV eating food and doing fun things, but I'm like, this place is it's just all of the propaganda and war stuff from World War II. And this particular he wasn't a curator, but he was very knowledgeable about all this stuff. He's can you pause it for a second? He's otaku about history.
Really?
Right? So he loves especially this era of history. So when he talks about things, he gets excited, but it's not that he loves war. He just likes the history. But it was really strange for me because I'm this.
Yeah, that's strange to me too.
Right. So I'm listening to his explanation and everything, and he's excitedly telling me, it's otaku type, right? And I'm just I just felt small in that place. I was just I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I thought those kind of people are more older. He's young.
Right, because he just loves history. I mean, he was a very friendly person, and when we talked off camera, he was just totally normal. But the second you started talking to him, if, for example, if he was I don't know, a figure otaku, right?
Okay.
And if he starts talking about his thing, he gets into it. He's all excited and everything. So when you're watching him on screen, he's fucking excited. So they started doing this in 1941, right?
Yeah. Christmas Eve.
And they started sending these pilots from Chiran, which is here in Kagoshima. So why did they choose Chiran? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
I think because Kagoshima was closer to the theater, right? Because they were fighting in the Pacific and near Okinawa. So we were a close place.
Right.
So I asked a very interesting question to this guy, because we all know what kamikaze pilots are. They're kids who got into an airplane, and they would, with the target of flying into the American Navy ships and British and other forces. And so they said just there that they sent over 1,000 kids, and I simply asked the guy. I was like, what's their like rate of success? Like what percentage do they actually hit their target? And it was something like 1 or 2%.
Oh, that's it? I thought more than 10%.
No. He
okay.
says it later on in the video, but it's like, I'm sure Josh will put it in the note after we do it, but like,
okay.
it was like 1 or 2%.
Okay.
And I just looked at him and I was like, are you fucking serious?
And they had only one-way fuel, right? Fuel.
So they can only go one way, and they couldn't come back. So you see these pictures of all these. They're kids, right? They're kids.
I mean, they're kids from all over Japan, right?
Right.
All over Japan to Kagoshima.
Yeah, and they picked the top brightest kids from all over Japan.
Oh
because,
yeah, I know that they are elite.
Yeah. So it says here that they're teens to 20s, but as the war went on, they kept going lower. I mean, both sides actually did this, but they kept getting younger and younger in age. And so you can see me in all of these scenes. I'm just not into any of this. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I hate this. And I started reading these kids' letters, and like they are enthusiastic about going. I don't know how much bullshit those letters are, but I think at that time the information that these kids had was so controlled by the government that they believed what they were doing. And so and the thing is, there's a video in this museum that shows what the families did when the kids were flying away in the airplanes. That the parents were there cheering and like, go get them or whatever. And like it was like a pride thing to be chosen to be one of these guys, because again, they didn't have access to the internet. They didn't know what was really going on. And they thought the Americans were like these evil devils that were going to come and like eat their parents, right? So they're like, I'm going to defend you, mom and dad, kind of thing.
And then I hear that those letters, before they send to their family, they're both checked their letters.
So
make sure that they're saying nothing like,
I don't want to go.
Right.
Well, of course, it's controlled, right? So one of the other weird things about this is that these kids were, you can just see I'm hating this. These kids were made to stay in a barracks in these rooms at the base near here, and they have a recreation of it, and it's like this very simple wood like kind of cabin, and they stayed there for days before they were sent off on their missions, probably to make sure that they didn't run away or whatever. I don't know, but. And as we're talking about all this stuff, like one of the things that they did was they're like, we have a person for you to interview, Mitch. And I was like, okay, who? And they're like, it's this 80-something-year-old guy who was literally in the barracks waiting to go when the war ended.
Oh, okay. So
like the war ended like the day before he was to be sent off.
I don't know if I'm saying right word, but he was lucky.
Lucky.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is when I met him, you'll see him later on in the video, but when I met him, I mean, he's at that age where he's not really, he's not going to have a conversation with me. He's just going to say what he wants to say, and that's it, right? But what he was saying was like, you young kids don't understand the horrors of war, and if you're this ignorant about war, you're going to repeat it. So you guys need to actively protect peace. Peace is not something that just automatically happens, and you have to protect it.
I guess that's why Japan keep making, war film every year.
But so let's talk about this a little bit. So we can pause this video. So I want to talk. So Natsuki, I really wanted to talk to you about this because I went here as an adult, and as a biracial person who has both backgrounds, and at the end of it, the experience was good. I'm glad that I went because I learned a lot from it, and it did, like the older gentleman, I wish I remembered his name, said peace is something we have to actively work for. So I learned all those lessons, but. All the people in this prefecture go to that museum when they're, how old do you go?
The first time I went there, probably I was like 7 or 8. I can't remember when.
So you guys are sent there, right? And it's for the same reason, right? To learn about the importance of protecting the peace. But how do you react to that as a 7-year-old? Do you understand it?
No, I don't understand it. I kind of was scary.
Yeah.
And then there was a airplane model.
Yeah.
I thought that's cool. And then also near the museum, there's a like wooden house that the pilots are staying.
Yeah, the bunker. Yeah,
bunker. So I thought just, it looks like fun place for camping or something like that because I was so little.
Right. Because you can't process that information, right?
No. And I, of course, read some letters and I was kind of scary. But that's it. Nothing serious impact.
What did your teachers tell you about it, right? Were they explaining why you were there? Or was it just like, we're going here today. Okay, let's go home.
I actually can't remember, but of course, the reason why we go there to sing for our ancestor because we are living happily now is because of their sacrifice. Well,
everybody's sacrificed, right? Because of the horrors of the war. Right now, at least the generations after that didn't want to repeat it.
Yeah.
Right. So
when I was young, I didn't really understand, and then of course I had a chance to go there like several times in my life, and then as I get older, I start to understand what it really means, and I don't want to really read those letters because it's too sad.
So now that you're a mother, right? You have a daughter, but let's say that you had a son.
Okay.
Could you go as like a mother to that museum and read those letters without like just crying?
I don't know if I'm going to cry, but I don't want to face things that
reality.
Yeah. I guess they had no choice, of course.
Well, they didn't. They were, like I said, they didn't have. There's no internet. They couldn't. They couldn't like Google. Like, should I really do this? Right? No, they were just told by all the adults around them, you got to go.
Right.
And that was it. Josh, have you been to that museum?
No, I haven't.
Why? You're half Japanese. Why haven't you?
I mean, I think similar feeling as you. Like, I don't know. It's just really hard. Like, even just looking at the video now, I was kind of tearing up and stuff.
Yeah.
Are there any museums like this in the States?
So it's okay. So I'm going to be a little critical of America. Hey guys, I don't hate any country, but I'm just going to be a little critical of America because America won. They have the victory kind of mentality.
Okay.
So if you look at our video games, for example, like all of the first-person shooters, so many of them are like World War II based.
Okay.
And we're always like the victorious Americans killing Nazis. Nazis.
No. Stop it.
killing. That was a Floridian slip. Killing Nazis. And so like it's kind of bad because in some ways, I mean, it's good to when you watch movies like for example, like Wonder Woman, for example, that was I think during World War I or maybe World War II or something like that. Like, yeah, good guys win, blah blah blah, that's great and everything, but when you have that mentality of like good guys, bad guys, and then like we're like the righteous, the just ones, you learn less lessons. So after World War II, you can see America, who became the top military power after that. We didn't really learn that, hey, wars are bad. And so we look at the war in Afghanistan, the longest war that America's ever had. That would have never happened, likely never happened if America lost World War II.
Okay.
But because we have this victory mentality, it's like, wars are good. They're going to fix everything, right? Because if you look at Japan was doing okay before the war, but if you compare pre-war Japan to post-war Japan, like, what is that video about the history of Japan say? Economic miracle? I mean, Japan's GDP just went like this after World War II. And so we kind of think that that's going to happen. Like, if you go into, when we went to Iraq, there were people in the Congress saying, oh yeah, we're going to make it like Japan.
Oh.
And you're like, no, there's a big difference between Iraq and Japan. Like, that's not going to work. And like, people were telling the Bush administration that, like, there's no way that that's going to work, and it didn't work. Yeah, Iraq is nowhere like Japan, right? Because it's not the same situation. Anyway, so we didn't really learn that. And then when we have war museums in America, we have like the Holocaust Museum in New York or somewhere, wherever it is, and like that's like again, it's like seeing the horrors from the other side. Right, but we don't, because we didn't have like the kamikaze like history. We didn't. I mean, like, I guess if anything on this side that should have been, really thought about was like the atomic bombings, right? That's about it. Like, I can't. Yeah, we don't. I don't know. Maybe they are there. Hey guys, if you're at home and you know of like a good like kind of maybe a peace centric war museum in the States that maybe I don't know about, let us know in the comments. I'm not sure, but. Yeah, it just seems like we, again, just feel great about the whole thing. Like, we won, yay, right? And then, but in Japan, it's weird because the history isn't really taught right? I mean, like, what did you learn in school? Like how much in like junior high school and high school did you learn about the war?
Not yeah, it's kind of a lot, but not a lot. How much? I cannot tell how much.
Like, we have like entire classes devoted to World War II,
Yeah, but but I learned history in American history class when I went, was an exchange student, but it was very short. But of course, Japan learned more
Yeah.
compared to America because we probably lost.
Right.
That's the reason why.
Yeah. Again, it's like, okay, so like, for example, every year around this time of year, we've got 3 days that happen, right? You've got the bombings, the 2 bombings, right, of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And then you have like the
end of the war day.
End of the war day. And then these always kind of, around this time is also the beginning or around Obon, the holidays where we remember the dead and things like that. And they always play that movie on TV.
Right.
Hotaru no Haka.
Yeah.
Grave of the Fireflies. And it's like, I actually love that movie because it's artistically amazing. Like I think it's Miyazaki, right?
It's a Miyazaki movie.
Miyazaki's best. I mean, it's an amazing movie. My youngest sibling looked just like, what's her name?
Setsuko.
Setsuko. Looked just like Setsuko when he was younger, and when I was raising him, and so the Setsuko in the movies constantly saying "Nii-chan, Nii-chan," which is like older brother. So it really it just wrenches my heartstrings, right, when I see that. But like no one watches it. Like when it comes on TV, everybody's like, it's too sad.
It's too sad. You know, my friend's dad had a different view of seeing that movie.
Okay.
He said that those 2 kids were stupid because they didn't follow their, relatives.
Yeah.
They tried to live by themselves. That was stupid. There were so many people who, not sacrifice, who 我慢した. How do you say 我慢した? Tolerated from the situation, but they didn't want it. And that's why they dead. So my friend's father said they had a wrong choice. So depends on their age. What they think about this movie is different. That's what I thought.
So I've actually heard that before about that. Is that the arrogance, the pride of the older brother was what led to those 2 kids, suffering like that they did. And there's actually quite a lot. If you guys watch the movie and you can make up your own mind, there's a lot behind that, but there's also a lot of, we say like similar things, parallels between what happened in the war, actions that were happening in the war, and then actions that were happening with those people and those characters after the war. And so it is a very powerful movie, and you do really need to think about it on a lot of levels. But one of the things that it does show is what happened. I think in a lot of Americans' minds, World War II ended with the sailor kissing the blonde girl in the streets of New York, getting off the ship, and it's just like the boys come home, the war is done, and everything's great. Well, that's not how it was here. After Victory Day, which we call it in English, Victory over Japan Day, the war ended, but the hardship continued. Like I had a person I knew who was born, and my mother as well, was born right after the war, and they didn't have fun.
No.
Your grandmother, she's probably around a little bit. She lived through the war, right?
She lived through the war. She was 20s.
Did she ever talk about it?
She didn't, actually. And those generations don't want to talk about wars.
Right.
Yeah, because probably they don't want to remember.
It's traumatizing.
Yeah, traumatized. Yeah. So she didn't really talk about war to me. I asked some questions to her. Then she opened her mouth, but unless she doesn't.
What did she say? I mean, did she teach you anything you didn't know?
The reason why I asked her about war is because I learned something from history class, and then it says they can say something special about, Japanese emperor, and it's not even like Japanese, like Qin means like emperor, but like they have some, some things that they have to recall every day. And then my homework is ask your grandmother about if she can if she can say these words.
If she remembers the speech.
Right, the speech. And then I asked her, and she could tell everything.
Wow.
But before that, she didn't tell anything.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's true though, like, every now and then you'll find someone who's like grandfather or father like died fighting in the war. But they won't tell you that.
No.
They'll be like, oh, my great-grandfather. And they look at me with my blonde hair and they're like, died of some sickness. And it's just like, wow, there's a, I think a phrase in Germany, right? It's like, like everybody else's grandfather fought in the war, not your grandfather, right? They, like everybody says it's like, oh, somebody else's grandfather was a Nazi, right? And but anyway, yeah, when I talked to this older gentleman who was born, he was actually born during the war in China.
Oh, okay.
When they were occupying China, right?
Okay, Manchu.
And then he was brought into my mother's hometown when he first came to Japan. When he came, I mean, his parents came back to Japan, but he for the first time. And so he lived in Sasebo for a little bit, and then he moved to Kagoshima because his parents were originally from Kagoshima. But I asked him, I was like, how are things like going to school in like the late 1940s? And he was like, you know, we would have to play a game like, because sometimes we wouldn't have lunch. And so like the kids would like try to like, you know, just, you know, like put up with the hunger. And so it was like, who gives into their hunger kind of thing. It's like, don't give into your hunger kind of thing. Like, let's be strong. And like days where they would just like go out in the forest and try to like scavenge food, just find things to eat, or like they'd try to go fish or something like that because they just didn't have food.
Right. Maybe my mother's and my parents' generation is like safe. Like, you know, 5 years after the war, they don't really have like hunger, or they are like okay generation. But before that, maybe. So
like I mean, 5 or 6 years after the war, right? And so my mother was born like the year after the end of the war. So she's like, and in Nagasaki, right? So it's just like, she was not. And the thing is they had a word for half kids. Now they're like hafu, right? And hafu are really popular. They're on TV, you know. And I mean, Josh is half, and he you know, everybody loves it. But at that time, they're called ai no ko. Ai is not aishiteru no ai, right?
Not love. Ai means maybe mix.
Mix, right? But at the time, ai no ko was used as a slur, like a bad thing to call them. And because anyway, so like.
Or a love child, isn't it?
Aiji no ko. I think it's.
Ai no ko means.
I think it's ai is like mixed. Yeah, so it's hybrid. You've got interval or like the between. Between no ko is like basically what it means. And it's a slur. So if you call a half person ai no ko now and they know what it means, they'll slap you. But the weird thing is a lot of kids these days don't even know this word.
Maybe, yeah. I know this word, but maybe kids these days don't know the word.
And so anyway, that was the whole thinking of my television channel. Like send this guy out there to experience this for the first time. And I want to tell you, like the response, because a lot of the people who watched my TV show when I was doing it were older women who were at home at the time. And we got a lot of email after that. Well, email, faxes, and phone calls. And it was 100% positive. Or if it was negative, they didn't show me. But it was 100% positive. It was like, thank you for sending, you know, a different perspective there. We learned a lot of things. I asked apparently a lot of questions that weren't asked before. Like, for example, what was their like rate of actually hitting the target? And it was like 1 or 2% or something like that. And if that's the case, like I was like, why the hell are you doing this? But, you know, a normal Japanese reporter wouldn't ask something like that.
But I'm glad that we are living nowadays because you are, of course, American. And then you could go there and then, not could, I mean, it's a symbol of we're in the peace, right? Yeah. Like 50, 60, 70 years ago, it couldn't happen.
No.
If you were there, you were killed.
Right. Like 75 years ago, if I was there, they would have just shot me, right?
Yeah. So I'm glad that we are friends and we're getting along together, and you know, you could go there, report the things. That's great. I'm
actually on the same page with you. I'm actually happy. I mean, I was traumatizing, but I'm happy that my TV station sent me there because I did learn a lot. And one of the things that I really, really learned, what Josh was just looking at, was that the older gentleman that was almost sent off to be, you know, to die, basically, he said over and over again, like he wasn't interested in answering my questions. He just had his prepared speech that he said because he's at that age. But he just kept saying, like, peace is something that we shouldn't take for granted. It's something that we have to do we have to work for.
Right.
And when you're seeing this guy who's a living proof that he was right the day before, basically, he was going to be sent off to die. And he's standing in front of me, you know, with the ability to tell me that story. That's deep. Right? That makes you learn something. He's obviously not there every day. He was just there for this particular case because we went there to do the TV thing. But yeah, it was very eye-opening. And then on the way home, you know, because like all the crew went there with the TV crew, they're all Japanese, and so they're asking me like, so what did you think about it? Like, how do you feel about it? And it was hard for me to to figure out how I felt about it. It took me a couple days to really just unpack everything and figure it out. But yeah, the one lesson I really, really learned from that, and that's the one reason why I wanted to do today's show, is that peace is not something that we just, automatically are born with. It's something that we really do need to protect.
Right. I researched about the war and the kamikaze stuff in the internet, and I find that, interesting words that one of the pilots are saying. And then, the kamikaze are often compared to the modern time to terrorists.
Terrorists.
Terrorists. And, it seems like same, but they say it's completely different because, kamikaze is only carry out, it's happened only in the wartime, and then they hit only the target, not like normal people.
So it's only like military people.
So
it is different, but I think the reason why that there's a comparison between terrorists and kamikaze is because I think that especially in like Western thought is that if you do war, if you do any sort of battle or anything, as a last ditch effort, the last thing is sacrificing yourself.
Oh, okay.
But you should do everything you can to prevent yourself and others from dying on your side. That's like you need to protect everyone, not just some people or whatever. And so killing yourself to kill other people is generally considered a bad thing.
Oh, okay. But maybe we learn. We means the Japanese people learn a lot from their history, and then some professor asked the college students about the question. It says, would you die for your country?
Yeah.
And then, Japanese students said no. And then it was the lowest answer.
Really?
The professor asked the students all over the world, and then Japan was the lowest.
I don't know. Like I ironically wear a lot of American flag t-shirts and stuff on this show. Like it's literally irony because like I'm not beholden to any country. I like my birthplace. I like the food, the people and everything, but like I don't live there, and like if America went to war tomorrow with some country and they're like, Mitch, you gotta come home and fight for your country, I'd be like, no.
Okay, it's not about laughing.
Like no thanks.
Yeah, it's a hard question. I don't want to die for my country.
Well, because we know now that there's no reason to do that, right? There's other options, right?
Other options, that's right.
But at that time, again, guys, if you're thinking like, how could these kids do that kind of thing? Just imagine yourself in a vacuum of information. There's no internet, there's no TV, there's no radio. Anything that does come on radio is just propaganda.
So
the only thing that you know is that these monsters, there are stories where the GIs would enter Okinawa and like, the local people would drown themselves because they thought that the Americans were to come in and rape and kill them and eat them. So the mothers would like drown their kids and stuff because it was like they thought that was like the compassionate way, right? Because of all the bullshit that they were fed into, right? And then there's that historical photo of the girls in Okinawa with the bamboo sticks, the girls students. Right? Like, obviously not going to matter if, like, if the Americans were really monsters, they have machine guns, right? Like, your bamboo sticks aren't going to do shit. Which was ironically used in an advertisement recently in I think, Asahi Shimbun, not somewhere Shimbun. And it was used to say, like, what did it say? What is it? Can you Google bamboo sticks coronavirus?
Do you say mind control? Is that English?
No soul. What do you call it?
Mind control. Yeah, we say mind control in Japanese.
So mind control is not usually, that's it. So there's this double page ad that they took out in whatever newspaper with, this isn't the Okinawa girls, but these girls who like the iconic picture of the girls in Okinawa learning to fight with bamboo sticks. And the caption says something like, we don't need something, we need vaccines or something like that. Like we actually need something to fight this pandemic, which is like, and it's the virus is shaped like the Japanese flag. This was actually a very powerful image that they put up. But anyway, this image of the girls with the bamboo sticks is very iconic in this country. Mind control is something that you do usually like one person or, like the bad guy in a superhero movie.
Okay, so maybe propaganda is the right
I think
word.
you're thinking brainwashing.
Brainwash it, yeah.
Brainwashing. How do you say that in Japanese? I think it's no solji
No, we say mind control.
How do you say brainwash?
Brainwash, なんていう
It's
かな
no brain and then solji no soul.
ブレイン、ブレインウォッシュはね、なんていうかな。洗脳。
Senno, that's what it is. Sentaku no, right? That's what it is. Okay, senno.
洗脳する。
So yeah, so again, like guys, I don't know. I kept thinking like, okay, so I'm like 17 years old. I'm in this bunker. All of my friends are with me. We're all gonna go die tomorrow. Everybody's cheering for us. We're given a special uniform, right? And like our family I have to say that they're so happy and proud of us. And all the adults around me are telling me that this is the best thing that I can do to defend everybody that I love. Like, in that situation, again, I can't pull out my iPhone and ask Siri, like, should I go fly into that American ship, right? And it's just, that's the only thing you got. And again, they only had fuel to go one way. So once you're there, you're either going to die in the ocean or you're going to die in the ship. And I can't believe the guy, I mean, I'll look this up later. We'll put it up as a data thing, but it was just like a few percentage points that were actually hitting the ships. And it's just like.
But they believe that they won.
Yeah.
They're going to win.
They're going to win, right? The scariest thing about that museum, if any of you guys at home ever get a chance to go to that museum, I do recommend that. Chiran's a wonderful place. You can see historical samurai houses, beautiful streets, and then also that museum.
They're famous for cherry blossoms. Too.
Cherry blossoms and green tea.
Yeah.
Right? It's a beautiful place. If you guys ever get a chance, please do visit. But the thing that really shook me when I first walked into the museum was there's this giant painting of this flaming, like exploding, like, what is it? What is the name of the airplane? The famous one?
B29?
B29, isn't it? A no zero no nani?
わかんない。なんだろう。
It's like the
ゼロ戦?
Zero sen, right? So it's a picture of that airplane, the famous wartime airplane, and there's a pilot in it, and he's sacrificing himself by crashing into something, right?
So the real airplanes in the museum, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And this painting has an angel from heaven carrying the soul of the pilot up to heaven. That's the first thing. It is a giant wall mural, and you see that, and you're just like, wow. You're just like, where did I come to? And if you guys didn't know this, just a side bit of information here. Kamikaze, the what were they called? Sorry, Tokutai. They didn't just use planes. They used submarines as well. And I think one of them was found in Hawaii or something like that. I was reading about it. Yeah, they're all over the place. And it was just one of the crazy things that happened, actually. One of the kind of symbols of friendship after the war is that one of the kamikaze pilots hit a ship and his plane exploded, but it didn't. His body was left there. Okay. And you're gonna have to Google this one because I'm going off memory on this. So they gave that kamikaze pilot the U.S. Navy gave him a soldier's burial at sea, like and honored him.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and it's the people, like some U.S. officials in the Navy actually came to Chiran, and the people of Chiran thanked them for paying respects to their soldier.
I didn't know that.
And so it was like a honoring the soldiers kind of thing, right? Because like, and this is the end of my TV report, by the way, ended with me talking to a city official there. And I basically said what we started today's show with, like, yes, war is decided by the people at the top, but the people who are on the bottom are the ones that die. Right. So, as horrible as the war was, the people that were dying on both sides were just young boys.
Young boys who had a bright future.
Right. And, a lot of that was just, swept away, millions dead after the war. And so that's really, I guess, the reason why I wanted to talk about today was just simply, that the Victory Over Japan Day is coming on the 15th. And this time around, I kind of wanted to have a show about it. And I wanted to talk about, again, what the older gentleman said in the interview, that peace is something we have to actively work for, everybody.
Victory of Japan Day with end of the world day.
Right. And so that kind of arrogance as well. Like we need to, as the American side of this conversation, I think that we need to self-check sometimes and realize that, war is sometimes war is the only option. I understand that, but like it should be avoided at all costs.
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, it's been a very serious show today. If you guys enjoyed today's show or have a comment, please keep your comments respectful. Leave us a comment in the comment section below. Hit the like button and subscribe to us to never miss an episode. If you guys have any topics that you want us to talk about, any suggestions or anything, just let us know. And we'll see you guys next week. All right. Goodbye. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Stay safe.